Hello, this is Jer. I'm in the radioactive ocean asteroid. Actually, this is the Dessel lens, but the radioactive ocean's asteroid is where I started. But I have zombie spores that have been exposed to this space. Now, fortunately, it's not leaving the oil biome, and I do have a sort of a trap, so it can't get out of this spot. But what I'm choosing to do to solve this problem is to pump out the gas, in particular the carbon dioxide, because zombie spores love carbon dioxide. But if you make the gas thin enough, you actually don't need a full vacuum to remove them. If you just get the whatever gas is in there very thin, and you can do that by just pumping out the gas until it gets to that point. Obviously, the gas that you're going to pump out, you're going to pump out into space because you don't want to just transfer the problem to somewhere else in your base. So that's what I'm doing here. Is I'm leading this pipe. I'm going to have a series of pumps down there, and it's all going to go out here, out in space, where it can leave this location forever. That's the plan. One of the other things I like to do in the Dessel lens is to use the telescope to see what is around there, because I see at least one or two question marks. So I'm going to give this dupe astronomy so they can start to use that. Another goal I have for this episode this is on the inverted world. It's actually sending another dupe over there, Digger. Is I want to get to the top of that asteroid. And there's a lot of hot magma on top of my way to be able to do that. But there is this little column going up of material. But what I don't want to do is to dig in that extremely hot zone with gases, because that will transfer the heat to my dupes. I want to go up in a vacuum. So I'm going to fill in this full area, create some liquid so that they can dip down and go into a vacuum area. Just watching my polymer press here, someone had mentioned that plastic will actually turn to naphthalene. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, you want to make sure that the conveyor route going out of this room is as small as possible, and you should be fine getting some plastic out. I'm worried about this polluted water overfilling. You need to have 3 tiles above it in order for it to become overpressure. Otherwise, you can have some leakage on the other side. So that's why I'm building that tile there. I'm constructing a rocket, another rocket. This one is actually going to go nowhere, as in it's just going to go 1 tile away up in space. It's going to be designed to make databanks. So it's the only way to make databanks is to actually put that machine up into space. So that's the purpose of this rocket. I can see my dupes in the inverted world have managed to fill this spot here with water. So I'm going to destroy this. I'm going to fill in the remaining spot on the far right with tiles and start destroying it for a vacuum. But before I do that, though, I'm going to make sure to put them through atmosuits, because when they go into that vacuum area, they will be releasing carbon dioxide, removing the vacuum if they weren't in atmosuits. Okay, I just realized that I had the ventilation fan running while I was filming the first half of this. Anyway, that's been turned off. What I'm doing here is I'm sending material to the invert world, so things like ceramic, steel, copper, plastic, to be able to construct some advanced stuff on top of the base. Now, while these dupes here are waiting for those resources, they don't have anything to do. So my goal is just to dig out some copper. Just going to be careful not to destroy some of the rooms that they've created. Just realized that I'm actually low on copper, so I'm going to generate some here in my new metal refinery that takes care of heat for me. A new planetoid has been discovered. Let's see, what do we have for resources? Natural gas! That's exactly what I've been looking for, because I want to create some pepper bread. And gold, copper, iron, of course, in the metal-rich world. Okay, that's good news. It's been a slower process than I was hoping for sending over material. That's because I don't have as much plastic, steel, and as I had thought. But as the home base generates that, I'll be sending that over here. I do have enough copper, though, to create the atmosuits. That is the next step, so at least I'm not going to be blocked from doing that. I'm going to put 3 in there, even though I only have 2 dupes at the moment. Need some power. And I'm relying on oxygen from the home world. So tons of oxygen to go into this, so that's good. And then from this point, they're going to dip down to that water area and dig up, such that as they dig or destroy those tiles, they're going to create vacuum, and that will give them temperature protection. Let's see, we're going to send them some food and some plastic and other goodies for them to construct when they finally get to the top. But for the meantime, they just need that metal for the atmosuits, and of course the atmosuits themselves. I'll have to make sure that I send that, and actually just realize that I may not have enough, so I'll make sure those get created. Okay, it didn't take dupes too long to create some atmosuits. It was just a matter of going to the station that creates them. They're going to be sent to the invert world. Dupes over there will put them in the atmosuit stations, and they'll be able to dig up, which is good. So here is the process I was talking about. I can now start to destroy this tile here. And because they're going to dip down through that water area as they go in here, there is no gases to be filled in, meaning it's going to be maintained as a vacuum. And that is extremely important when you're going through a tough zone, like tough hot zone like this. And I'm just going to get my dupes, do some other activities since they're running low on stuff. So do some mopping, digging out some more copper ore. Lots of copper ore in this world, which has been awesome. Okay, so we can see operator going in. That is now a vacuum. So what I can do is continue to dig up, and as they do, it's going to just continue the vacuum. And you can see that I've got a magma area that I'm going to have to deal with. So I'll have to do this in a very particular way, which we'll see later on in this episode. So operator's just continuing to dig around. Just watch out for any things that might output material, such as bleach stone, which I don't think is in this asteroid anyway. So the reason this is important, I'm putting air tiles, and it could be mesh tiles too, but that's going to stop hot material falling on it and going down towards my base. All right, so that's the purpose of that. Now, here's the trick. I'm going to dig up in such that I can create an angle, a tile on an angle, such that that's going to push that hot magma to the left. There it is. I've created a tile. I'm now able to dig and continue that process to the left. And once that second tile is created, I'll actually be able to destroy that tile that you see right here. Okay, so this is the Desolens. I still have the issue of those zombie spores, but I finally have power and pipes down here. So what I'm going to do is just actually put in the pumps themselves. And I've got lots of solar panels on top of this base, so there shouldn't be a power problem for these to run. But the idea is just to make the gases very thin, because zombie spores can't survive when it's a very thin gas. So the other thing you could do is fill in everything with tiles. No, that's not a great strategy. Okay, so dupes are making progress up here, just waiting for that digger, or maybe it's going to be operated. It's going to create another tile. Excellent. Now I can destroy this tile. And if I continue this process, I'll have a way to get up. And I can do the same thing on the right. And you can see, okay, careful. I've got a little bit of hot magma falling down. Let's just keep pushing this to the side. I'm making that out of obsidian, by the way. That is not just random tiles. Those are obsidian tiles. And making sure I've got some airflow tiles. So if any hot material, again, falls down, that sand, that... any of that stuff that's up there that falls down, that's going to be extremely hot. But if it falls on an air tile, that air tile is technically a vacuum. It's not going to transfer down to the base underneath it. So that's nice. And I can also see the magma has just sort of disappeared. Don't understand that, but I'm not complaining because I don't want it. I don't want it in my base. I don't want it there anyway. So now that I've got this, I've got a full line up. This is amazing. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Sometimes when you're in this world, you don't have to worry about that little bit at the bottom. It just depends how the map is generated. I was a little bit unlucky, but it's not that difficult to do what I just did if you're in that situation. But there we are. And this is a vacuum area. So as they're digging up, that material to the left and right of them is extremely hot. But because they're in a vacuum and they're in atmosuits, they're not releasing carbon dioxide. They're not taking temperature damage. So the dupes are safe. And they can dig up to the top, and there's really no risk at this point. The biggest risk right now is just magma falling into the zone, but I think we're going to be okay. That's the importance of making those obsidian tiles. So the outside of the rocket is constructed, just giving it a oxygen line going in, so we don't have to completely rely on algae. And this whole thing is going to rely on the orbital data collection lab. I'm going to just place that on the left. It's going to take in plastic, or that's going to be its source. of input, and then it's going to output data banks, but it has to be up in space. And a dupe has to operate, so we need a appropriate living area. So this is actually going to have a great food storage. It's going to be in the vacuum area. So any food over in this bottom right corner that is put in there is going to actually stay forever. If it's assuming it's frozen when it goes in there, which I will make sure that it is. Actually, before I do put in the ration box, I just need to make sure some sort of liquid is in there, because it's going to be a pass-through tile that the dupes can access the food while they're in oxygen, but the food is in a vacuum spot. So someone had mentioned that using those slickers was a good source of removing this, because they actually eat the carbon dioxide, which is not a bad idea. I already started this pump process, so I'll continue on with that. But that's pretty good too, because it's really the carbon dioxide that they go after, and oil slickers like to eat carbon dioxide, so that's actually a natural way of getting rid of those. But what I'm just going to aim to do is just to pump it out so that there's no future risk of that being exposed to my base, and hence exposed to my dupes. On my data lab rocket here, which is what I'm going to call it, I do an important step, choosing brine. It doesn't really matter what the liquid is, as long as the temperature that it's going to go won't cause it to go to gas. Brine would be a good choice here. If a rocket ever gets to 100 plus degrees, we got bigger problems anyway. So that's just going to sit right on that tile, and it's going to act as a vacuum protector for the food, but also going to allow the dupes to go reach across it. And because they don't actually have to walk on it, they don't get their hands wet. They just take the food with their gun or whatever you want to call the things that they're constantly holding and grab stuff. But yeah, that's what that's about. If you're not watching your dupes and they're digging up onto sand, it could be quite dangerous for them because they can get trapped. So make sure if you're digging up to a sand area, sand of course falls down, that can actually trap them such that they're in this tiny area, not having access to oxygen, food. So I'm going to actually make this 2 tiles wide, because I suspect I'm going to have pipes go up on both sides in the future. As the dupes start to put together the bottom floor of this rocket, it is now time to start to think about the second floor. So up there I'll likely have a bed, manual generator, and a lavatory for the dupes to relieve themselves when they're up in space on this research or data bank production mission. It's likely the first thing that I'm going to want to build when I get to the top of this asteroid is solar panels to bring down power. Notice I've got a transformer going down now, the smart battery to turn it off when necessary, but I'm going to bring heavy watt wires up such that when the solar panels are there, I'll be able to have power go down to the base. Just a quick note, I use wolframite for that heavy watt wires, so switch that to copper ore, which I have a lot more of. Alright, so this is actually creating a very thin area. I think I still see a tiny bit of zombie spores. They are dying out, so this system is actually working quite good. But I'm just going to accelerate the process by adding more pumps to get even thinner area to make sure the zombie spores completely die off. So this is all result to the fact that just one of the tiles I had forgotten about, I think it was that area above that second pump at the top, I dug into and did not realize enough cycles had gone by such that it was not worth for me to go back and fill in properly. But if this ever happens, I've done this strategy before and it works quite well. Just create pumps everywhere, and again, make sure that the gases here aren't exposed to the actual main base, which I have at the moment. It's blocked by some water or oil, I might think most likely. But the purpose for that is, one, for the zombie spores not to go into your main base, but as this pump starts making this really thin, you're not losing oxygen by having oxygen be pumped out into space as well. So before these pumps go on, just make sure that the gas area that's in here is self-contained. It's not connected in any way to the main base. So that's important. So it's really just a matter of having the air pipes and ducts and the power for these pumps. My standard practice for the pipes, both the gas and water, or liquid, is to run them all through the rocket as much as possible, acting as a sort of a cheap storage medium for both oxygen and water. So that is just going to take advantage of that And water is going to be used for the carbon dioxide skimmer, the lavatory, and the oxygen is just going to be pushed out of the vent somewhere, so that when the dupe goes up, that they can rely on oxygen that's sitting in the pipes, and it'll only start burning algae when that runs out, just reducing the dependence on algae, which is good because as I do space missions in the future, I'm going to be relying on algae for that. Okay, just notice that I've trapped myself such that the dupes can't dig in that food area, so I'm going to have to refactor something with that spot. As the dupes in the homeworld start to create steel and plastic and all that stuff that I need to be able to do, I'm bringing that over to the inverted world. So when construction begins on some of the more advanced stuff on top of the base, hopefully I will have everything in place for them to build. You can see this little pass-through area on the left that's preventing zombie spores from getting out, but I noticed a little bit of zombie spores in this top area above. I trapped some on the right side there in those blocks with polluted oxygen. So that I can deal with by filling those tiles in, but I think I need a pump up here as well. Okay, so sending over some glass. And that's going to be the important material to start off with, because that's going to allow me to build solar panels. Because that's the first thing now that I'm up at the top. I have wires ready to receive power from solar panels. Just there we are. The first solar panel can now be constructed. And I'll make a whole array of this, or at least as far as I can go with the amount of glass that I have, and continuing to get my homeworld to produce and send over glass such that I'll eventually create a solar array that goes full way across this base, getting lots of power for some future projects for me to be able to do on this asteroid. Okay, so main thing here is just have glass, solar panels, and of course the heavy watt wires. It doesn't do any good to actually build them unless they're actually connected with power as well. Alright, so this databank rocket is getting close to completion. I've got a manual generator there. Just put in 2 batteries. I got rid of the carbon dioxide skimmer because I need to put a bin. I need to have algae and plastic loaded into the rocket. But all the pipes are in place that if carbon dioxide was to ever start to fill up in this rocket, I can just destroy that bin and put in a solar panel. I've also disabled the algae oxidizer there because I want to fill it with natural oxygen, but oxygen that I'm getting from my homeworld rather than building algae before turning that on. Just as a matter of conserving my algae, because as I mentioned, I wanted to use that in space missions. Alright, so the other bit is I've got some automation there to actually take the plastic, put that in the orbital research generator, whatever that thing was called again. But so that means whoever, because now we're seeing oxygen reloaded, but that means whoever is going to be doing the operation, generating those databanks, they can skip one step because the sweeper can actually put the plastic inside that machine rather than them just cranking out a little bit of extra databanks per cycle potentially. But there you can see some oxygen going here. Now these batteries are on, and they're in a vacuum. That's a bad thing to do. I would potentially disable those things, but oxygen's going in, so now we're safe. You do not want to operate batteries for a long period of time. You can see the temperature going back down now while a battery is in a vacuum spot. Bad idea. The next step is very important. Make sure that you choose the food that you want to load onto the rocket. I'm going to choose a sweep only and barbecue. The reason I'm choosing sweep only is because I want to go into the homeworld and I want to only put 6 kilograms of food. I don't want to maximize it out. I want to specifically tell them load this and only that barbecue meat. I know that barbecue meat is frozen. You might find some barbecue meat on the ground somewhere else that's not frozen. You do not want to have unfrozen food go in there because it will ultimately go bad. That will ultimately turn to polluted oxygen, and that's going to make all the other food go bad. So make sure by putting the sweep only option in there and specifying the actual barbecue meat or whatever other source of food you want to put into the rocket. So because it's frozen in a vacuum, it'll last forever. And that way the dupe that is up there doesn't have to go up and down all the time. They can just stay up in space for cycles and cycles, generating data banks like crazy without having the rocket go up and down, as I mentioned. So that is just about ready, actually. I can now identify the dupe that I want to send up there. They just need to have the rocket piloting and operator skills. So I'm going to choose, but because they're going to have a morale hit, I'm going to scrub all their other skills. Okay, making good progress on the inverted world. I have more plastic, or not plastic, rather, glass brought over, not enough, so I'm still constructing more. But as that is being pushed, glass is being pushed over there, I'm getting the dupes that are there to create those solar panels. So let's go find about, let's say, 1,200 more units of glass. That's manufactured material. So that's going to allow the solar panels array to be complete. Okay, so just quick note, these pumps are made with gold and magma. That is good because this is a hot zone. You don't want to make this out of regular material, such as copper ore. But I'm going to disable them because I no longer see any zombie spores. I'm going to disable them but not destroy them at the moment, just in case I do find zombie spores come back in the next few cycles. I'm going to send a dupe up to create some databanks. Going to go to their skills. I skill scrubbed astronaut. I'm going to give them rocket piloting and proved tinkering with operator skills. So that's all you need to do is get them to go one tile away. They don't have to travel far. And I'm going to make them the pilot for this and get them to launch up. And the only thing I really need to do is once they're up there, take off their atmo suit. That way they can just breathe the natural oxygen that's there, not using it from that. And let's just create this forever. So as long as there's plastic, and of course they're able to survive oxygen food, they'll keep generating those things. I even added the resources on the side to keep track of it, both plastic and databanks, to see where that process is. So because I now have databanks and I want to do some of the research for that, it is time to think about the Virtual Planetarium, which it takes in inputs of the databanks. I want to put it here, but I have to dig out some natural planets that Darn Pip probably put in place, but anyway, that's fine. So actually, why don't we even make that tile so that doesn't keep happening? But once those planets are out of the way, I'll create my Virtual Planetarium. It's going to have some power. I'll have some light with automated switch, as with the many other things. So just before I get back to that, I see these dupes are bored. I don't want to do that. So just looking for some material that they might want to dig. Maybe we even go to the top of space, open some of these things. I believe that was lead. And there's little bits of copper ore that could be useful. Oh, they can actually get down here. So that can be solved easily by putting the ladder at this spot, so they can actually get down and start to dig out some metal ore. I just gave a little dip down spot with that solar panel so they can get down there on the side. Alright, so that is going to allow them to progress, or at least not be idle. Alright, the plants over here have been removed. The Pip there is in the way, but he's not going to put a plant down because I've requested a tile to go there, so that's fine. Automate lights, as I had mentioned, whoever's going to operate this will have access to light, and that light will turn off when they're not there, so that is good. I already have the heavy wires going across it, so that is fine. I'm going to put a bin for the databanks. And this is important because what you want to happen whenever that rocket lands that has the databanks, you want those to be unloaded into this very quickly. I'll even put an auto sweeper there just so that the dupes themselves don't have to put in the databanks. But I'm going to put that as a high priority to load that bin. So whenever the rocket lands for a short period of time, I can get all the databanks out quickly before the rocket goes back up and to such a point that the dupes don't have access to it. All right. Going to put this power back onto this because we're going to start the research for a various number of things now that I've got both the databanks and that system for the Red Bolt generator back on. So just telling again my dupes over here to put databanks in at high priority, and that's going to okay, so I had to put a ladder there to access the top, but I forgot to give this guy access to the lavatory. Okay, all right. So how about he takes a break from generating that? He doesn't have to work any longer with the filth that he's standing in. So I'll get him to clean that up. He can then destroy that ladder. And then once okay, Damn. I'm going to have to land. That's just probably the best thing to do. Unfortunately, and I'll send it back up once that has been created. All right. Minor detail, but an important one. One thing that's annoying once they get up in space, if you don't give them an excessive amount of material, such as copper ore or anything like that, they're limited in what they can build. So before you get your rocket up, also, actually didn't have water loaded into that. Either had the pipes ready for it, but not actually have any water going to it. So also forgot, there wasn't just the laboratory itself that I had forgotten. Carbon dioxide is the other issue. Oh, natural gas is being wasted. Why is that the case? Okay, so that's filled, which is fine, but it would be smart in my mind to put a second storage for that, just to be able to take advantage of that in the future. I just have to decide exactly where this thing fits the best. I don't want to crack open that liquid area and have that fill more spots, or spot at the bottom with liquid. So if I build this right here with a ladder going up, I should then be able to direct a gas pipe going from the output of this to the input of that one, storing twice the amount of natural gas. So for the polluted water bottles that are in here, I'm always aiming for about 5 to 10 tons. No more than that, because it can become overpressured. Any less than that, it becomes not pressured enough. I've got about 6 right now, tons of each location, so that's why I'm destroying these and recreating those. Once I start to get thin on sand, I'll probably stop relying on this system. But it is generating a lot of ceramic with the clay that comes out of it, so that clay in the clean can be converted to ceramic. Getting close to having a full solar array on top of this, which is going to give me a lot of power. Whoops, off by one there. So first major thing that I'm probably going to use with power is a cooling based system. And I'll have that probably just underneath some of these solar panels somewheres. And that's going to cool down some sort of liquid, which I can bring down to the base. And I actually want to freeze it, because I want to create a spot that natural sleet wheat can grow. I'll have a lot of that. But that's my main plan for that base. Next little bit is to have power cooling system such that I can have natural sleet wheat growing, so we don't have to rely on the farm long term. Okay, it looks like zombie spores are no longer a thing on my base. That is awesome news. I can get my dupes to start digging down into getting some more material, lead, iron ore in a few cases. They might as well destroy some of that stuff that's made out of refined metal as well. Alright, so this rocket here is ready to go back. Well, I'm going to block this off and fill it with water, and then once it is filled with water, I'll then send it back to the Desolans. I'm going to have an alternate system of sending water and oil back and forth. That's probably the next thing I'm going to research. But for the time being, this rocket is the only way those two different liquids go back and forth between this world and the Desolans. Unlike the inverted world, where I have this nice and handy teleportation system to be able to send materials very easily back and forth, I don't have that in Desolans. Okay, so I mentioned that I want a cooling system, so I'm going to start this, and this is going to look very much familiar with what I've created many times. It's just going to have a steam turbine above, the aqua tuner at the bottom, and water that eventually turns to steam. Just going to make sure that I build this out of ceramic so I don't get a lot of heat transfer between it. That's going to be at the top and the two locations where the pipes go through in and out of the aqua tuner. I'm a little bit shy of ceramic, so I'll have to go back. Okay, so let's do some research. I want to do the high velocity transport. That's going to allow me to send water and oil back and forth without a rocket. Scientist is utilizing the Virtual Planetarium, giving me access to a better way to send liquids back and forth between the Desolans and the homeworld. Finding I don't have enough carbon dioxide for my rockets, so what I'm going to do is, instead of bleeding this is the actual stuff that comes, or carbon dioxide that goes from the polymer press. So instead of having that wasted out into space, I might as well direct it to the rockets themselves, providing for a little bit more fuel that way. Got lots of ceramic in the home world, so finding that is easily brought over, but glass and steel I'm a bit short on, so just sending that over as it's created. But very close to having the full solar array created. In fact, after these two, I think we're there. Now I can concentrate on the cooling base system. So I've got plastic for the steam turbine. Let's see if I've got enough. Okay, so I've got the flooring there for the ceramic insulated tiles, but not enough steel yet for the aqua tuner. I'll aim to get more steel over there soon so that I'll be able to construct that. I'll need a little bit more for other things. Got 2 liquid reservoirs filled with water, so this is ready to go back, but I'm going to destroy this so that when the rocket comes back with oil, water doesn't push into it and mix with those with the oil when it goes out. That's just going to prevent me from having to do filtering. So that's why I'm destroying that tile, but the one dupe is now off to the Desolins with 2 liquid reservoirs filled with water that can be used, well, both obviously for oxygen, but primarily for the oil well to produce more oil that I'm going to be sending back. It's also going to allow the rocket to get over there to be filled up with oil so it can come back and produce more plastic, which I don't have a lot of at the moment, so that will be a good thing. Eventually I'll have the research so that I can use the high velocity transport to be able to do this, but that's not in place yet. The other thing is I actually going to cancel that. I have enough for my rocket to go up, and I don't think I can actually bring the rocket back down. I don't want to do that. I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer until more carbon dioxide goes into that engine. Otherwise, a dupe might have to abandon up in space, and I don't want that to happen. So let's click all so that dupe can leave and do some other things while we're waiting for that. I noticed a little bit, I was directing carbon dioxide to the farms. I might as well destroy those vents and have that redirected towards the rockets. So the rocket here is just about to arrive. What I'm going to make sure I do before I direct the water to go out of it is just destroy the pipe that goes, or oil pipe going in. I don't want oil to mix in with water. It is not, I shouldn't say monotonous, but it's just a manual thing you have to remember. But when I have the high velocity transport, this system no longer will need to be put in place. So the idea here, when the dupe goes in here, they'll start to direct. Let's go on the other side. They'll see that water is going out. Oil is not going to go in until water is completely removed in such a way that it can go in those liquid reservoirs. And then I can put oil back in the rocket, send that home, and generate plastic. Also realizing that the electrolyzer doesn't have a cooling line going on it. That is not going to be a good thing long term. So let's direct these that liquid polluted water liquid line to go through the electrolyzer so that stays cool as it operates. Okay, and I've got lots of water going in, which is good. So I'm going to have some of that for the oxygen, but eventually, the oil well. I must have, when did I destroy that? I might have been doing some work. Anyway, whatever. I'm just going to make sure it's made out of steel so it doesn't overheat, but I do have a cooling line, so I don't suspect it'll actually ever get too hot anyways. So that is in place. The dupes have cut out quite a bit of lead down to this area, so I'm actually having them go to the second oil biome on the left side. So I'm actually going to put a blocker there such that they can use this ladder in the atmosuit controlled area. And I'll just continue that down so they can get up. And then we can start digging left towards the extra lead, a little bit of iron ore, and a diamond that's over in this spot. Just taking advantage of the fact that they're here, and I ultimately want this material at some point. I haven't been able to get my rocket up to create more databanks because I don't have enough carbon dioxide. So I'm just sort of destroyed those vents into the farms and directing the carbon dioxide here towards this rocket. I don't need a whole lot. That's definitely going to be enough. All right, lavatory is in existence. I can now direct it to go 1 tile away from my home base. I'll crew it. I'll be able to launch it. Once it's up in space, let's take off that suit and forever generate databanks. And that they will continue to do that as long as I have plastic. So I should be getting quite a bit of that. Also have high velocity research complete, so I need a little platform to indicate where oil should be landing and a opener to be able to actually take the payload into the base. This is more of a sneak peek of what I'm going to be doing this next episode, but I'm creating a bunch of steam turbines. So I'll have a hot steam area. but I'm going to call this the location where I'm going to generate rad bolts. Because right now I've got 3 Wheezy warts. This is just not going to be enough in the near future. So I no longer need a telescope. It's fully been explored around this asteroid. And I have a high velocity transport system here. Just needs some power. I'm going to feed that oil. And it needs rad bolts to run, so that those rad bolts will go in with oil and they'll start sending it towards the homeworld. Okay, so this is what I want to do. I want to get that rad bolt generator with a series of rad bolt reflectors to go into that not teleportation, but high velocity transport. But I need to have a path open. So I'm going to destroy this tile. That's going to allow oxygen to flow out, but that's why I put that bottle emptier there. I'm going to put crude oil in there and dump that in. So what that's going to allow is rad bolts to go through it, but oxygen won't. So just if I get a pause here, there, dropped it in such a way that oxygen now is no longer escaping. I'm just going to mop up a little bit of oil that got on that Wheezy wart. And now I can put in a set of rad bolt reflectors such that I can direct the rad bolts that are going to be coming from that into that transportation system for my oil. And I need to set the location of where that's going to go. Let's point that to the radioactive ocean asteroid and make sure I set up the directions for the rad bolt reflectors. Otherwise, they're not going to go to the right place. Let's see we don't have power here. The other thing before we look at that, let's put in pipes so that oil can actually start to go into that machine. So when the first rad bolts are entered, that will have some oil descend. What is missing here? Oh, okay, yeah. So it doesn't actually connect. It's not the switch's fault. It's the fact that I don't have heavy wall wire. So you know what? Let's just throw this there, and that will allow that to have power, start to generate some rad bolts. And I will eventually be getting oil sent to the homeworld without having to send a rocket, which is amazing. All right, I'm just also noticing a little bit of a loop problem in the sense that you see those masks stations. Technically, it's now possible for them to leave that area. They don't seem to be doing that at the moment, but they could be going into the main world or main asteroid with masks on. So I'll fix that in a bit. Okay, so I'm just waiting for that power to go on, just making sure that any of the dupes that have exited have taken their mask off or gone through the masking station. Actually, I could have just checked the station themselves instead of tracking down the dupes. But anyway, what I plan to do to fix this solution, actually, let's put a tile right there. That's going to prevent a pass-through by the dupes to go back and forth from that location, such that they'll, once they exit the base with the masks, they won't be able to enter. All right, and this is the flipped asteroid. I actually want to put in some brine. I'm choosing brine here. I'm going to get it from the homeworld. I'm going to connect here and just make sure that I put a disconnect so that the water and brine doesn't mix together. All right, that's going to be my cooling agent for a future project in the inverter world. Might as well put in a solar panel here. It doesn't take too long for the first pieces of oil, or first payloads of oil, to be fired towards the radioactive ocean asteroid. So there it is, leaving the Desolens. Doesn't have far to travel, and it will land in the Desolens. Let's have a look at how the orbiter research or databank production is going on. Let's see, 85 so far, so that is doing really well. I don't have a way yet of indicating where water, eventually it's going to be sent from the homeworld, will land. So I'm putting this in to be able to indicate the payloads to actually land here, instead of forcing my dupes to go find them. You can see another payload of oil just went out, so this is excellent. I'm not going to connect with power just yet, but I'll have a opener system direct to the pipes. And once I have water being sent from the other world, I'll turn that, connect that heavy watt wire. In this episode, I've dealt with zombie spores, found a way to build a pathway through hot magma in the inverted world, and also built a high-velocity transport system such that I can send, or will be sending water to the Desolens, and now I've been able to send oil back to the homeworld. Next episode, I'm going to set up a cooling system on the inverted world, and I'm going to set up a system for generating a lot of rad bolts. in the home world. Hopefully you'll see that. Like, subscribe. See you then.